Welcome to the data analysis end-to-end project where we're going to be developing a SQL database, and then we're going to write some queries that brings data from our database into Power BI, and then we are going to create a dashboard. And this is an end-to-end analysis project. So let me walk you through the workflow. So the workflow is we build a database, we develop SQL queries, we connect to Power BI, and we create a dashboard. Very simple, and this is a great project for you to dive into. Now, let's get the requirements. So here is a typical request you may get from your management. It says, Dear data analysts, we need your expertise. And I've highlighted all the important information here. We want to know which projects and departments are at risk of being over budget or underperforming. Note that department budgets are set at 2-year intervals. We want to know if a year covers all expenses. Identify departments and projects in red. So that gives us an idea what we need to do as a visual. And we want to know data organization, ensure data from various sources, employee information, salary data, department budgets, and project details. Also, Power BI dashboard is being requested. That's the technology we want to use. Collaborate with us to create a comprehensive dashboard. This is from your manager. So this is pretty typical request. They usually don't come in this nice, but this is a good indication on what we need to build. So let's take a look at one of the dashboards that we will be creating. So this is a dashboard that we're going to build. It's a project overview dashboard, similar to what was being asked for. We're able to select employee information here. That gives us different headshots and information on each one of these employees. We can use these filters to filter these tables. This gives us information on the department, whether they're profitable or not, and some information based on projects. So this is pretty much what we are going to end up with. We're going to need two parts to make your database work. We need to download a server, and our server is going to house all our data, and that data is going to be in the form of CSV files, which we're going to upload to a central repository that we call a database that lives on that server. Then we need a way to interact with those files. And the way we're going to interact with those files is with a SQL Server Management Studio. So we're going to download Microsoft SQL Server, and you can see there are different versions of this. And then we're going to download the Database Management Studio, which is called SQL Server Studio from Microsoft. So all you need to do, as you see, I have Googled Microsoft SQL Server in one of my tabs, and I have downloaded or search for SQL Server Studio. And these are your database and your database management studio. So let's go through the download process. If you want to get 2022, let's just click into that. And we want to make sure we're using the free version. And we can go to try now. And as you see here, we can try it on-premise or in the cloud. Ours is going to be on-premise. So all you want to do is you want to get the express version here. You hit download. And this is going to download in your browser, as you see here. And now let's download the Microsoft SQL Server Studio. So I'm going to click into download. And what we want to do is get the version that is most updated. So I'm going to get 20.2 here. Click into download. And now you can see I have SQL Server Management Studio and SQL Server. If you see this one and this two, it's just because I've already downloaded these things before. So I'm going to show you how to install them. So let's put the server in first. We want to use an executable file for a SQL Server Express here, 2022. I'm going to click the link, and you're going to be presented with this screen. I'm just going to use the basic installation. So click basic. Then you want to accept this agreement. You can read the license terms. And now what we want to do is just install this. Now mine is already installed. I have my Express Edition, but I'll let me close everything so I can show you how it's installed. So I'm going to click install. Now I already have a version of this, so it may take a little bit more time because it's going to be removing the previous one. Okay, after it's installed, you can see we have the great advantage here is that we can install SQL Server Management Studio from this prompt. This is going to be the information that tells us about our server. You can see the instance name here, and we will use all of this information later. You will have access to this information. The way we're going to log into your server is just with your Windows credentials, so don't worry about it right now. So if I hit install from here, it's just going to initiate the download again. So we can go back and download from where we have already held, which should be in your browser. So I'm going to go to Management SQL Server Studio here, which is SSMS. Then you're going to be prompted with this window. This is where your program will install. I'm going to hit install. So now our setup is complete. So now we've installed our SQL Server and SQL Server Management Studio. We don't want to connect to the server from here. What we want to do is use your SQL Server Management Studio. So just search in your search bar, and you should have your Management Studio here. You can see I have a couple different ones. I'm going to go to my 20 version, which is the version that you have, and that should load up. And now you're going to be prompted with this screen. And now we can see we have our database engine all built. We have our server, which is a server that you install, and this is the name of your server. You can copy and paste this now, but I'll show you how to find this later. And then we can see the authentication is Windows. You can change this if you like, but I just keep it this way because it's on my laptop and it's on premise. Then we hit connect. And now we can see in the left side here, we have our databases. Yours should be empty if this is your first time installing. If you haven't, you can see there's some databases here that I've already created. I'm going to take you through how to create one of these databases with the files that we're going to use to upload. Okay, let's take a look at the files that we are going to be using to create our database. So I'm going to go over to those files. And we have these files that are going to populate our database. We have the completed projects. We have upcoming projects. We have departments, employees, project assignments. And then we have a project table and a headshot table. The headshot table is going to have all our headshots that are saved and upload it to a website so they can stay live. And the project table is going to have more information about the projects. We don't need the project table, but we'll add it to our database for reference, just in case you want to do some deeper level of analysis. So let's flip back over to SQL Server Management Studio. And now all you're going to do is you're going to highlight the right side where it says databases. You can see my 3 databases here. We're going to create a new one. So we can create a new database by going over and right-clicking and then doing new. So then a new database is going to be presented to you with this particular window. And the window is going to ask you to give it a name. We can give it any name we want. I'm going to just call mine project. And then it gives us what additional information is going to be there for our database files. And then we can go to add or OK. Since we're just having this one particular one, I'm just going to hit OK. And you can see that project has been populated there. Now, once your database is being created, what we want to be able to do is add our files. So I am going to now right-click my database. Then I'm going to go to Task. Once you have the task window open, you want to go to import a flat file and you want to navigate back to the location where we saw the previous file. So I'm going to go to import flat file. This window will pop up, hit next. Then we need to give it the file location, and then we'll also be prompted to give a table name and then the table schema, which is kind of where we're going to locate it. So let's first go to the location where your file is. And I'm going to start with the employees table here. So I'm going to click that. And then you can see that the new table name is employees. I'm going to navigate down to next. And now we get a preview of that table here, the data in that table, and you can see the columns, which are first name, last name, job title, salary, and some other information. You can use this option here to find the different data types. It's not necessary, but I'm just going to leave it. Hit next. Now what it's going to do is give you a window of the column names and the data types that it has potentially understood. You may need to be able to change these in Power BI. You can choose what the primary key is. Uh, all these records are unduplicated, so you don't really need to worry about that. And then you can sit with nulls or add nulls. And then I'm going to hit next. And this is just going to give you the summary of what's happened and hit finished. And then you're giving operation complete and the data has been inserted. Now I'm going to close this. Now you go over to projects here and you can click the tree with the plus sign to open up your project. And then you go to tables and you can see nothing is there except your employees table here. And now we have the employees table there. And what we can do is continue to add each one of our tables to populate this database. So now I'm going to add one more and then I'll just speed it up so you don't have to watch me do this. So again, just go to the database, right click, go to task, go to import flat file, next, browse. And now I'm going to go to departments. You can see that the new table name is there. Hit next, and then hit next again. I'm just going to let it preview the data type. Here's the data types that it has discovered. Hit next again, hit next again. And now the operation is complete and I hit close. Now, as you see, we can't see the table here. Sometimes you can just close it and open it back up and it's there. If you don't, you can click the refresh button here and then open your table up. And now we can see we have two different tables. Now I'm going to quickly go ahead and add all of these uh, in the same manner that I did before, and then we'll come back and start writing our SQL. Okay, I have all my potential files installed. So we have completed projects, upcoming projects, departments, employees, project assignments, and then a projects table. Now, again, we won't use all of these, but we want to have as much data as possible. Now that you have this database created and it's populated with our tables, what we want to do is be able to start writing our SQL query. And you can preview each one of these tables by just right clicking it and selecting the top 1,000 rows. But instead of that, I'm just going to highlight this database, and then I'm going to click over to new query. And what that allows you to do is when you're creating your queries, you can just query the table instead of constantly writing the database in front of each one of your tables. So I'm going to click new query. And then you're going to be presented with this empty window. And let's look at our employee table. Let's start by taking a look at our employees table. So I'm going to use select statement with this wildcard, which is a star. And I'm going to say from the employees table. And as you see, when you type, it will pop up to show you the table. I run that. And we get this employees table. Now that's the employee ID, first name, last name, email, job title, their salary when they were hired, and the department ID. So this is great start for us to get an idea of who those employees are. Now we don't know the department. We only have the ID. So it's probably pretty logical to look at the department table. So I'm just going to quickly copy and paste this query and just change the table to departments. And then you can see it pop up in the IntelliSense. So I'm going to run that. And now you see we have two tables. And we have a department ID in that department table with a whole host of information about the department. It makes sense that we should join these two tables. So the way we join them is with a key. Both of these have department IDs, so we can join these tables. So we use the keyword join, and then we're going to join departments. Now, I don't want to keep writing employees very and departments, so I'm going to alias them as E and D. So I'm going to say join them on where E has a department ID and where that department ID exists in the um, department table. And now if I run that, what I get is this nice long table that has the department information attached to it. Now, of course, we can continue to build out this table. And as you see here, there are other tables that we can explore. For example, the project assignment table. We can look at the columns by just clicking into columns. And we can see that it's very important for us to know, project information maybe in regards to the employees if we want to add that. So we might want to join the projects table to our new table here. And if we look at the projects table, which is just going to be our our completed projects and our upcoming tables joined, we can take a look at the projects table, which we take the columns and we can see there is a project ID in that column. But there's no project ID in this table. But we do have a project assignments table, which has an employee ID and the project ID. So it's only going to make sense that we're going to join this table and have a project ID connected to that table, which we can connect to our projects table. So it's an additional join. So let's join, let's say the project assignment table, and we can call that PA. And let's say we want PA to be on, joined on, PA dot the employee ID that we know exists. And in our employees table, of course, we have an employee ID. And now we can see that we have two joins in that table, and we run that, and now we have all of these individual columns, and then we have that project ID. Now, the thing is with bringing in all of these different columns, you're going to get duplicates. As you see here, we have department ID and department ID here. So what we want to start doing is just bringing in the columns from each table that are really important to us. So I'm going to do that now, and I'm going to show you how. So now that we've aliased those tables, we can get rid of that wildcard and say we want to bring in something from the employees table, which we can now signify with that alias. So I'm going to bring in their employee ID. Of course, I want to bring in their name, first and last. And I'm just going to do this really fast so you don't have to watch me do it. So as you see what I've brought in these columns from our employees table, the department name from the department table, and the project ID. And of course, we can always come back and add stuff here. So what I'm going to do is run this, and it looks like we have an error somewhere. We let's see, I got an extra D there for some reason. So I'm just going to run that now. And now we have a much smaller table that we have all the information that we want added. This gives us our kind of first big table. So I'm going to document this with a double dash, and I'm going to call this big table. And that's just going to kind of be one of our main tables. And now I'm going to go above that. So I'll make a little bit of space. And I want to take a look at the upcoming and the current table. So let's look at everything from our upcoming table, which has the upcoming projects, and then I want to select everything from the completed projects. And I'm just going to highlight these two queries and run them. And as you see here, for our tables here, which has an upcoming project, we have a bunch of information here where we have project ID, project name, project budget, start date, end date, department ID, and the project lead. Then we have the project ID, the project name, project budget, start date, end date. But we have no lead because I guess these are completed projects, so we don't have them anymore. So probably we want to connect these tables, but we want to know there's a difference between those tables. So if I want to connect these two tables by stacking them on top of each other, we need to do a union. Now we can do a union between these two queries. So just doing union, we can union these two. But in order to do a union, we need to ensure that all of the column numbers are equal. And as you see, we're missing a column here. So we may not need the project lead right now, so I'm going to forego that. And I'm just going to bring in the columns that I find that are important. So I'm going to start writing these. So I want to bring in the project ID, project name, project budget, and I think that's all I need right now. So I also want to bring those in for our completed projects table. So I'm going to bring those in. And now we have two types of unions. We have a union and a union all. Union all is going to bring back any duplicated rows. I don't think we have any rows that are the same, but I'm going to use union all anyway, just to see that we get back everything. And now you can see we have two queries here that we can stack on top of each other. I'm going to highlight this and run it. And now we have a project ID, the project name, and the project budget, all in this table. Now, this is going to be our project table where it's, let's call it project status. Now, the thing is that we don't have is we don't know which projects are completed and which projects are upcoming. But we understand from these two tables. So now what we can do, we can create another column where we can say we want a status, and that status is going to be called for our upcoming. Let's just call it upcoming. And then we want to say as to create a new column. I'm going to call it status. And I don't know if I need single or double quotations in this one. Looks like single. So then I'm just going to copy this and bring it under here. And then now we want to make sure this is completed. So now if we run this, now we have that status there. Now the challenge is connecting this table to this table. And I'm going to show you how to do that with a CTE. So we want to create a common table expression, which is also known as a CTE. So I am going to call this our CTE. So the way we turn this into a common table expression, which is an encapsulated table that we can use for joins and to select from, we use with and then as. So now we use with and as, and I'm going to call this our project status table. And then I use these parentheses to encapsulate that. Now, with project status, uh, w- with project status as, and make sure we have that right. Now, with project status as, that's going to give me the ability to select from this table. And we know we want to join that here. So now I'm going to join that project status. And you see now it's in our IntelliSense. And I'm going to call that our, I'll just call that our P table. And I want to join that on. We know we have in the P table, we have a project ID. And we know in our project assignment table, which is PA, I want to bring back that project ID also. Now, we also want to signify in our columns what we want to bring back. So now we have this P table, and now I can get the project name and the project status. And I think we're good to go. Now we run this, and now we have this pretty comprehensive table here, which has the employee name, their first name, all the information, the department, and which projects they're working on and their status. This is a great start for us to use to connect to Power BI. So let's start with a empty blank report. So I'm going to click blank report. And then you're going to be presented with your Power BI blank report. And we know we're using SQL to connect to our database. Now, the database connection, we can find that here and get data and look for SQL Server. You also see you have a SQL Server here in the top ribbon. So I'm going to click into that. And let's see what requirements we need. From this window, you see we need the server name and we need the database. And we also want to use some of the advanced options, which will allow us to put our queries in here. And of course, there's a timeout. So let's get our server. So let's pop back over to our Microsoft SQL Server Studio. And here is our server information up here. Now, what we can do is we can right click that, go down to properties, and it's much easier to capture the server. So here's the server information. So I'm going to copy that. And we remember that our database is called project. So we will just pop back over in a minute, but let's go back over to RBI. And now we have our server information. We know our database is called project. And the next thing we want to do is copy and paste our query in. Now I'm going to copy and paste that query. And now we have all the information we need. We're going to initiate the import here instead of a direct query. So I'm going to hit OK. And now you can see that information that we have worked to bring in, it's also there for us. I'm going to hit load. Now you can see that table is going to populate and we have the information we need here and just all of the different data types we see that are there. As you see here, anything that has a sum symbol is going to be a number, and the other information that we have is going to be dimensions or our string data. So let's take a quick peek at our dashboard. We know we want to get to something kind of similar to this dashboard. We don't have to have it exact, but we want to be close. So let's go back to our empty dashboard. And we can start building things up. So first I want to build the backend structure. And we're going to do that by inserting some shapes just to get the kind of shape of the dashboard. We know we have this part here. And then we're going to have another part. So I'm just copying and pasting that and bringing it over here. And now we have those two parts. And then I'm going to move this one to the back so we don't have this line here. So we go to format and then we go send to the back. And we looks like we're going to have to remove the borders from both of these. So I'm going to highlight both of these with just Control A. Then I'm going to go to style. I'm going to change that to that dark blue. And then I'm going to make sure there's no border. And then now we have something kind of relatable. So this is going to be our top. So now let's remember that we need to bring in our headshots. Now we didn't connect those to our table. So we need to bring that data in. So we're going to go to get data and we're going to go over and get our headshots. So we go to get data. That data is going to be on a CSV. So let's bring that in. And that's going to be in our headshots here. And there we go as our data there, as we have the employee ID and headshots. Now, you could have added this to your database, but I didn't see the need. So I'm going to load that. And because Power BI has some auto relationship building, let's navigate over to the left where we have the model view. And you can see already, like it's already made this relationship here, as you see, and it's connected on employee ID and employee ID. Now, we need to ensure that we are bringing in the images that are hosted on a website. So now we have these two tables. I'm going to click in the headshot. And if I click in the headshot here, it's going to bring up the column tools. And we need to make sure this data is categorized correctly. So we need to go down to a image URL for that to be able to read the images. Once I click that, I click into headshot here. And that's going to open up all of our headshots. And now, for us to be able to filter those headshots, we need to make sure there is a filter. So now we can go here to just our regular slicer, and we can get the employee ID. And because they're connected, we should be okay. So I'm just going to use the employee ID here. And this filter is not going to give us what we want because it's an in-between filter. So I'm going to go over to the ribbon here that looks like a paintbrush. Click in the slicer settings, and I'm going to go to drop down. And then once I have drop down there, I'm going to go to selection. And I only want single select on. Um, so once single select is on, you can see there's only one headshot there. And now we can see if I click into the different headshots will be created. So we know we want that somewhere here, and we want that to be pretty sizable to see. So once we click this, we can go back over to the paintbrush. And because this is an image, we can go down to image size. And I'm going to make that 175. And then you'll see it goes by 175 and 175. And now we have this headshot here. And by clicking it, we can change all the headshots we want. Now, I'm going to close this up just so we can see what it looks like, kind of somewhat full view. It's kind of big, but I think it's okay. We can work with it. So now we're going to start building out uh, the rest of the dashboard. So we can quickly just change the style of the slicer by going over to the visualization. And then you can see we have general and the visual. I definitely want my background to be on. And we can definitely change that background to, a background that is more suitable to that color. I'm going to turn the visual border on. I'm going to change that to like this light gray. Then I'm going to go over to the visual and then font color. Um, I think I'm going to just change the background to white in the inside there. And then we still see we have this header here. Well, maybe we change that to white. And I think I like the background like this. So it'll be a little different from the other one. Make sure that header font color is white. And now we can just place that there. So as you see, we're kind of tight with space. So what we can do is either you're going to have to start making things smaller or we can make this a little bit bigger. So I'm going to now just click into an empty part of the dashboard, go to visual, go to the paintbrush, go to canvas settings, and I'm going to go to custom. And I want this to be slightly higher in terms of height. And then I'm going to go to 820. And now you can see we have much more space down here. And now we can start building out the information in regards to this employee. So we're going to go back over to the visuals here, and we're going to get this new card visual. And for the new card visual, you can see it pops up. And now I want to start building out this person. So I go to data, and now I know I want this person's first name And you can either drag this in like this, or you could just click into the section here. I want their first name and last name. And obviously this is way too big for Robert Williams. So we want to get our call out values by clicking into the paintbrush, going to values, and then going down to, I don't know, maybe 15. A bit small, but that's fine. And then I kind of want to start using the same as Sugoi semi-bold, maybe for them. I want my font color to be white. And I also want for that header to be white. So going to effects, I want that visual border. Kind of want that gray that we talked about, light gray. We don't need a title. For the background, I'm going to click off because when we take the background in general, we can just drag it over here. So I'm going to put this here. And now we need to remove the background, effects. So that's going to remove the overall background. Now we need to go into visual, call out values. We want to make sure the label is also white. And now we just need to click into card and then go down to background. And now you click that off. And it's still a little big, but I think it's okay. So now we have that. And you can see that it's picking the first value out of the list. So we want to go over and change this to first name and maybe family name. Just keep it a little different. And now we have this information here. So we just center this a little bit. And now I'm just going to copy and paste a few more of these. So we have some extra information about this person. And as you can see, this is flashing up and down. I do want this to be moved to the back now so we don't have this issue with it popping up. And let's get one more. And now all we need to do is go change the information here. So for the second block, I am going to click one off and probably want to bring in the job title. So just make sure the names are good. So he's a sales executive. Uh, we want to bring in it's a department name. And now let's bring in his compensation. I'm going to rename that compensation. And now we can also click into salary here. And let's turn that into a dollar sign by going up to the top. And you'll see here you have these data types. We change that into a dollar amount just by clicking it. He's making 72,000. And we can maybe make this the same size. I think we're still going to be a little tight, but it's okay. So now we can click and each one of these people, we get the different headshot and we get the type of role, the sales, the compensation, and the names and all of the different information. Now we want to bring in some departmental information and we want to understand which departments are profitable or which have some deficits in the money they want. So I'm not going to go in and get a different SQL query, you can do that because we do need to take a look at the data structure before we start building metrics. So I'm going to go to transform data up at the top. And now you can see we have those two tables. If we're looking at the query, that first query that we brought in, you can see that there's a lot of information here that we can use. We want to be able to look at the total cost by departments. So there's a salary here. And remember that the salary is needs to reflect the project budget and from our email. So let's take a look at that. We know that the department budget is for 2 years. So that means that we need to take in consideration that all the other salary costs need to be multiplied by 2, or we need to reduce the department budget in half. So either way, we can come up with our metrics, but the projects are set. So we need to take that in consideration when we are building that metric. So let's go back over. I want an easy table like the one that was in the dashboard, but we would have to do a few different calculations. And I just want to do what's easiest because you can see we have duplications here in terms of the department names. So that means it needs to be aggregated along these department names uniquely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this, and either we can duplicate it or use it as a reference. I'm going to use it as a reference because if we duplicate it, we can go in and change it, but I'll just use that as the reference. And now you see we can't go into the source. So I'm going to group everything along the department name. So now that I have this table here, I can go to transform. And then you see this group by here. So I'm going to click group by. And then we have a table. Now I want to group by the department name. And I want to be able to calculate the different columns differently by a group by. So maybe for the first column that I bring in, I want to bring in a sum. Oh, sorry, department name. So I'm going to call this our department budget. And this is going to calculate or sum all of the budgets. I'm going to sum that, and then I'm going to get the department budget. Did we not bring that in? Oh, we didn't. So let's click this off, go back here, look at our query. So I'm clicking query, then I'm going here. I'm pretty sure we brought it in. Let's take a look at our query. Department, no, we didn't. So now we need to add the budget. So I just go and change my query d dot budget. I think it's called department underscore budget. And I hope that's how you spell it. No errors. And let's see. There's our department budget. Now let's go into our query here. See if that's been referenced correctly. And there's our budget. So now let's group by. Call that our, just call it budget. We want to use the sum. And then we want to get that department budget. And then I want to be able to bring in more. So I click advanced here. I bring in another aggregation. I'm going to call this salary cost. I bring in the sum and I get the salary. Then maybe what I want to bring in here is the project cost. And I want to bring in a sum. And then I get the project budget, which we also did not bring in. So I don't want to get rid of my work. So I'm going to delete this row and just hit OK. And now you can see we have these two tables. Go back over to my query, click source. And now we just bring in our budget for the project. So P, I'm just going to bring that in, P dot project underscore budget. And I think that's going to be lowercase. Let's see. If it's not, we need to go take a look, but I think it is. Yep, project budget. So now we're good to go. Go back to our reference query. We click into the group rows with the icon here, add our aggregation. Let's use project cost. We use sum, and then we use project budget, and then we hit OK. And now you can see we have all of that information from there. So, and we don't want employee ID. Remember, we want department name. So let's change that back to department name. Hit OK. And now we're in business. We have our 5 departments. One other thing I want to bring in is department goals. So we know that is a dimension. So we add an aggregation here. And then we get our department goals, which we also did not bring into this table. Just go back over to your query, click source, go to D, and those look capitalized. So I'm going to put D dot department underscore goals. And let's see if that's correct. All right, looks good. Get our query here, click into group rows, add another grouping, department goals, and then hit OK. And now we have a table here. Now, the last thing we want to be able to do is we know this budget is being doubled, so we need to reduce it, or because it's 2 years, and we know we need to multiply this by 2 to get our total amount. So let's create a new column. So we navigate over here to home. We go over to add a column. We go to custom column, and then this window is going to pop up. I'm going to get the budget, and I need to multiply that by 0.5, which is going to give us half, right? And then I want to subtract the cost. So the costs are going to be our salary costs. So salary cost, you can see IntelliSense pops up. And this needs to be multiplied by 2 because we only have the annual salary. And then we need to add this to the project cost, which the projects don't need to be multiplied because the projects span multiple years. And then let's close that up. And we can call this our, I don't know, capital or revenue or whatever you would like to call it. We can see here it signified no errors. We hit OK. And now we can see which which departments are profitable and which are not. We want to change the data type to money. So I'm going to go to fixed decimal for money, and fixed decimal, and everything's okay. Now we're going to close and apply this, and let's rename this table, our cost table. We'll just call it cost. Close and apply this by going to home. Now it's going to automatically make a relationship. So we're probably going to have to eliminate that relationship so we don't have any issues with filtering that we don't want filtered. So I'm going to go over to the relationship here, and you can see it obviously made a relationship. I don't need that relationship right now, so I'm just going to right click that line and just leave it that way. Going to go back over. Now we can see, and if I close these up and I go to cost, we have our capital. Bring that in, and it's going to come in as this bar. However, we want that to just be a card, and you can see it's 1.29 million. You want to make that much smaller by clicking the paintbrush, call out values, go to 25 or maybe even smaller. Let's go to 20. And I want to change that name. So I click into the build visual here and just call it capital. And that's going to be how we work with that particular metric. So now I want kind of a breakdown maybe of cost uh, for this. Now we got to remember I think I want project cost here. So I'm going to make a donut. Oops, wrong one. Just press Control Z. I press the empty part, Control, and now we want to be able to get our department name. And I'm going to get the project cost. And then we'll have the project cost there. And now what I want to do is turn that into a donut chart. And I want to click and make this much smaller because I want to get rid of the legend. I want to take off some of these ugly colors for slices. So I'm going to change this to a light blue. And I'm going to change this one to a gray. And I don't like this color. So I'm going to change this purple to kind of just a very light blue. That's closer to this one. All right, that's fine. And then we want to go to general. We want to make this very skinny. And so I'm going to go to visual, go to slices, go to spacing. Then as you see, you want to move that up and maybe around a little bit thicker. All right, that looks fine. Then I want to remove the background on this. So I go to general, go to effects, go to background, go to off. And now you can see it can be captured there. And then I can pull this in over our capital, but I want to bring this down a little bit. And let's bring this down. And let me move this backwards so I can touch both. And let's get rid of the background here also. So we go to general, effects, and background off. And now we have this little metric that we can have. Change the title. Project. And then I'm going to change this to Sugoi semi-bold and make it a little bit smaller. And then we definitely need to make sure it's kind of centered. Okay. Okay, now we have that. Let's create a table. So now I have the table. I just want from our cost table, I just want the department names, department goals, project cost, salary cost, and budget and capital. That's just a whole table. Pull this out. Now we do need to work on our budget because we know budget we need to make smaller. So now what we can do is either we can go down to our table or we can divide by 2. Let's first try to create another column. So I'm going to go to here, transform data. and I'm going to add a column to that cost by adding a column, custom column, and then I'm going to get the budget, multiply that or divide by 2 just to get half, and we'll call this 2-year budget. Close this, close apply. And now we have that 2-year budget. And it's not the right data type, but we'll fix that in a minute. Because you see, if it's not the right data type, it won't sum. So now we have a 2-year budget. Let's go ahead and change the way this looks. I'm going to put style for this table, and I'm going to put none. Then I'm going to just want to highlight that sum of budget here. We can change all the title names, of course, by getting rid of sum, just clicking and call this capital. And I will do all that later. But now what I want to be able to do is easily see a conditional formatting to see when there is some profit and when we're losing money. So now we click our paintbrush here. We go down to cell elements. Now we highlight the column that we want, which is capital. We change the background color, and you can see it's already being formatted. We click the conditional formatting. And I don't want a gradient, I want a rule. So I click to rules, and let's go into the sum. So I want to say anything greater than 0 and less than, and I'm just going to put million there. We're going to keep that with that blue that matches our color. Then we want to add a new rule. Anything that is greater than negative 100, 1000000, negative 1000, and then we want to change these to numbers. And less than 0, we're going to make that red. So I'm just going to choose that red, and I'm going to hit OK. Now we need to make sure that font color is on. I don't want the font color to have conditionals, so we have gradient here. So I'm just going to put both of those white. And there we go. We have our table there that we need to represent our department health. Now I think I'm going to add some more visuals here. I am going to add another one of these donuts here, right here. And now I think what will be kind of cool is I'm going to now use my other table here, and I'm going to bring in the department name from this table, and I'm going to bring in not this metric, but I am going to bring in the project budget. And you can see that is being filtered by this because we're using that employee. So let's go over to format. We click edit interactions, and then we just click this off. So we get the 570,000. So once we have that status as our legend, we also need to go over to format and remove that interaction for this table. So let me just move this, and I don't want this to be filtered by this. So let me click it. There we go. And then call this project budget. And I want to change the colors here. So what I'm going to do is click here, go to slices. And for completed projects, I like that it's dark. For upcoming projects, I don't know, I want a different color, maybe like unrealized color, maybe like a darker gray. So that kind of gives me an idea what's going on. And now let's build a few more visuals, and then we'll decide on how we want to filter the dashboard. We also want to take that project budget and turn that into a currency so it looks a little bit better. And now let's create a few more visuals. So to give us some more detail, I think we create a horizontal bar chart here. We take this table, which is our project um, table that has all the employee information. We get the project name, and then we get the project budget. And again, it's being filtered by the employee here, so we want to take that off. So we click the employee filter here, then we just turn this on. Let's move that down here, and we might need to get some more room, but right now I'm going to leave it as is. Then let's conditional formatting for effects. Go down to, you need to go down to visual, go to bars, then change the bar, go to your FX here. We want to do a gradient instead of rules, so gradient. Then we want to make sure we're using the project budget. With the right table, which is your query, project budget, sum. Then we want that's okay. And then we want this, which is that dark color. That looks about right. Then we get that. Now that gives us an idea. We can change the title. Change the formatting. Make it a little smaller. And also I want my labels outside. So close this up. Go to visual. Go to data labels on. And now we can see those data labels. Information, copy and paste. Remove, remember it's being filtered. So turn that off. Then I'm just going to change here. I'm going to change that to the department name. And now we have the departments there. Let's see what the budgets are per department. You need to change this. I'm going to take off the x-axis in both. So to take off the x-axis, we want to take off the values. And I also don't need the title. So there you go. It gives us a little bit more room. Do the same here, values and title. All right, and this is going to be department budget. So let's change the name quickly. Departments, project budget by department. And now all I'm going to do is just quickly build a control over here. And I'm going to put in some dividers. So I'm going to go to shapes, go to the line. I'm going to change that style to gray. And we need to change the border to gray because it's also a big part of that line. And then I am going to just separate this make it really skinny. And just bring it here. Just separate some of these parts. I'm going to have to space things out a little bit better. But you got an idea where things are going. I got to space that out. And then just take one more line. And then let's make this rotation at 90. And I just want to separate this part so it's very clear. And then maybe what I'll do here is I'll copy this, bring this over, and as you can see, it's going to filter everything at that point. So now we need to go back over and change our formatting. So we click into this format, and I don't want it to filter any of these. So you need to go by quickly. I think what I'm going to put here is I'm going to put the status. So you can think about how you want things to be filtered. And you can see this is being filtered by this. So we really have to work on the filtering. And we have to make sure this is not being filtered or the headshots are being filtered. We want to make sure it's not filtering anything here. So that means this side is going to be controlled by that side. And we want to make sure this is not controlling this. Now you just have to decide how you want to control this dashboard. So this can control our information here if you like, where it only shows the completed projects. Same for this. And then lastly, I think we can, and I think we don't need this to be filtered, the outside part. Take that off. And then I'm going to create another filter here. And then I'm going to go to my department table. And I'm going to go to the cost table, get department name. I'm going to change that to a drop down. And now you can see what gets filtered there is the table in the information. So you have to decide how you want this to kind of be filtered. If you want the department to control everything, you would have to create a connection here, but I don't want that. So I'm just going to change these colors and be okay with everything for now. I would love to see what you guys come up with. Let's give it a title. I'm going to call this project overview dashboard. And then we just add our to go a bold. I'm going to make this all white. Change the background to transparent and make everything a bit bigger. Go to effects, background off. Then we can just copy and turn this into something bigger, too big. So that is our dashboard. We have something that we can be happy about. It'd probably be good to add some information here about how things are being calculated. You can organize this a little bit better. So you can see I kind of cleaned up the dashboard a little bit, and all I did was add some information here, added another line, and then brought in an icon. You can do this by going to any icon site and just importing that as a image here, and then just bringing that in. So I would love to see what your dashboards look like. Please leave any comments, questions below, and I hope this kind of gives you a good indication on how to do an end-to-end data analysis project.